you can use the purchase condition, of course, to be able to react to recently completed purchases. And so you'll use the purchase element condition as a starting element of a workflow. And you can see that because it has only the green positive path icon right here, the connection point. And so the first thing that you probably just saw that I disabled quickly was when you move the purchase condition over and then you move over to properties or double click on the element, you'll see a pop-up, which basically tells you before you start, in order to be able to track these e-commerce conditions, we need to add the JavaScript code into your site above the head tag. So you can see there's a full description here for how to be able to do that. And so this is key, to be able to use the e-commerce conditions in marketing automation and this purchase condition, you need to be able to have your website integrated in some way with GetResponse. And so one would be through the JavaScript code method here. And you can also use, you can see here, an API integration. So that could be through some of our e-commerce plugins that we have available or through your own custom API integration. And when using the API integration, you can see that you have to set up what's called a store in GetResponse. It's your store. And so you would be connecting, the purchases going on through that store through the API integration. And then you could configure the properties for this element so that you could react to purchases from the specific store that you've integrated. And you could leave it as simple as that. Anytime someone makes a purchase from your Chocolate Monster store, you could then send a message that says, "Thanks for your order." Or you could apply 10 scoring points to someone who completes a purchase. Or you could specify it even further. You could choose categories. If you've got categories in your shop, for example, Chocolate Monster, we could pretend it's a clothing store. So we could say this is going to be, shirts. And then you could specify it to a specific product, t-shirts, for example, and then a variant red t-shirts. Pretend candy bar, is about t-shirts, let's say. So you could specify it that much so that this could be highly specific, workflow that is made specifically for reacting to or making some action based on highly specific purchases. You can see you can also apply it to specific purchases if you want. Let's say you didn't choose the product. It could be, any purchase from your shop, but it's, let's say, greater than $200, let's say. And you can pick the currency you'd like to specify here as well. And then, you could, for example, send some exclusive offers. Hey, you spent, X amount of dollars at my shop. Here's, 10% off your next order. So you could think of like some kind of custom giveaways or custom deals to be able to provide based on the amount of the purchase if you wanted to. And you can see one other property here is run multiple times. Basically, it means that someone would qualify for this workflow more than once. And so this is, a pretty common property you might want to turn on if, for example, it's very generic. And every time someone makes a purchase from you, from your Chocolate Monster shop, you want to send a thank you message. And so even if they've already been through this workflow once, but they purchased again a couple weeks later, if you have this on, that means they will still qualify for this workflow and go back through it. So that's what that means. And if you're going to be using the JavaScript code, what's important here is, of course, that you install the code on your website. And then also you need to make sure that you enter the specific page URL that someone will visit or be taken to whenever they successfully complete their purchase. So it needs to be the page that someone sees when their purchase has been completed. They've submitted their payment details, it's been accepted, so it's not commonly known as a thank you page. So you need to enter that full page URL. There are some options for what's called like a wildcard. So you could be able to use this workflow to react to multiple variations of a particular domain or URL that someone might react to. Because, the most simple example is just if you had one standard URL that someone went to whenever their purchases are completed. But maybe you've got different, site setup, different pages, different subdomains, or different directories, and so you'd be able to use what's called the wildcard, which is using an asterisk next to a part of the URL to be able to qualify it for multiple different options. So one I could show you, I have them copied here just so you could see it, could be formatted like this. And so that if you have, yourdomain.com/something else, and you've got multiple, pages like this, this would qualify them for the workflow. There's also, if you've got subdomains, before your example.com domain, and you would like that to be qualified within the workflow, you could do it like this, set up for the thank you page. And you can even do it where you have the asterisk on either side of the workflow, so that for the directories and the subdomains you have, they would still be included and tracked if, of course, you have your JS code installed on your site. So that's the main takeaway for the JavaScript code. Have the code installed on your site and make sure that you enter the specific header thank you page URL, or properly use this kind of wildcard asterisk method to be able to qualify different URLs. And so then, based on the JavaScript or the API integration, where you can actually do really highly specific targeting if you wanted, after someone purchases, from the time you set up this workflow, you can start sending confirmation messages, thanking them for their orders, doing tags and scores. You can do all types of things based on the way that you configure your purchase element.